Hello and welcome back to Retfurb. So on today's video we're going to get straight into it. We've got this Shimano Acera-X rear derailleur that we're going to be stripping down, giving a service, clean and just bringing it back to life. So first thing we need to do is start stripping the parts off of it. So I'm going to take the cable mounting bolt off first and then we can look at giving that a clean. I'm going to probably, as I'm going through, clean it as I'm going rather than stripping it all down and then clean it. So as I'm taking bits off I'll clean it as I'm going. So obviously I'm using an old toothbrush. I've got some solvent-based degreaser like I use on all my videos to clean stuff, and then a rag just to dry it off. So now this is the cable adjusting part. So again, just stripping that down into little bits, and then we can use the solvent-based degreaser to go over the toothbrush and just clean off any of the dirt and the grease and the grime. So you can use obviously other bits to do this. Something like pipe cleaners would be good just to get down inside the tubes. But the toothbrush will get in there pretty well, and I also use the rag just to sort of twist down inside. And now we can look at getting the jockey wheels removed. So these are hex bolts. These just need to be undone, and then you can get the rear part of the cage off and the jockey wheel can be removed. So now just going over with a screwdriver, just gently just scraping off some of the hard, dirty, dried oil and grease and grime and everything that's been on there from the years. And then again, using the solvent-based degreaser just to spray that on the toothbrush and spray it on the part, and then we can remove most of that with the toothbrush now. So just going over gently, just, well, say gently. The toothbrush can be a bit more sort of rigorous to go around all the bits. And then afterwards just using the cloth to go around and cleaning up all the bits afterwards and drying it and removing all the degreaser. And now onto the jockey wheel. Again, just using a screwdriver just to remove most of the hard sort of built up grease and grime over the years. You can get in obviously and do it straight away with a toothbrush, but it'll take you a lot longer, so it's best just to scrape off some of the hard stuff if you can. You don't necessarily have to use a screwdriver. You can use maybe like a hard sort of plastic trim tool or something like that, which will get it off. And then again going over the solvent-based degreaser with the toothbrush and getting in all the little bits, and then going over all the little small parts that are on the jockey wheel as well, just doing exactly the same process. And then on to the other jockey wheel, doing exactly the same as what we just did, removing all the small parts, and then we can get around and scrape all the hard stuff off of all the little small components. There's obviously a lot of hard grease and grime that's sort of built up over the years, which is on the small parts as well, so that needs scraping off also. Now all these small little bits, it's all the same sort of process as before, just going around cleaning it up. You know, it's a pretty tedious job to do, but it's worth doing it because once this derailleur is done and it's cleaned and it's been greased and re-oiled, you know, it'll work again exactly how it did when it was original, providing there's no damage, hasn't been hit before obviously. But if it was just dirt and grease and grime over the years which has built up and gone bad, you know, this will just bring it back and make it run so much nicer. It'll shift better, the cogs will run a lot better, and the chain will run better over those cogs. So I think off the top of my head, I think this Acera-X is around 96 model, something like that, 97. Could be completely wrong, but I think it's around about that sort of era. So now moving on to the actual main body of the derailleur itself and just scraping off again most of the worst of it. There's quite a bit of hard stuff that's in between the springs, so I'm just going in with a screwdriver trying to get that out. And now removing the main bolt which holds the derailleur onto the frame. So just being careful with this because obviously it's sprung under tension, you don't want it flinging off, so sort of holding that as you move it out. And then you can push the bolt out, and then the main spring for that bolt can then come out as well. And now going over cleaning all the small parts of what we've just taken off. So this is a small little retaining clip and then the bolt, and then moving on to the spring, and then the small piece that holds the spring in place. So just removing the screw so I can clean in and around there first, and then I put the screw back in afterwards once it's all cleaned. So this derailleur was part of a build I did recently, which is already up on YouTube, which is the Cannondale M300 build, which is a nice bike, turned out really well. Tried to keep it all original, and yeah, it came out really nice. So now, as you can see, moving on to the main body again, just going over, trying to scrape out the worst of it, trying to get in between the spring and scrape out most of that sort of hardened grease and dirt and grime that I keep saying. Just need to try and get in there and get it out as best you can. I also keep squirting in the degreaser in between there, which sort of pressurizes it out. Just firing it in between the spring and everything, that'll get most of it out. So once you've done one of these derailleurs, especially sort of the 90s era derailleurs, and it probably applies to a lot of the newer stuff as well, to be honest, but once you've done one of these sort of 90s type derailleurs, you'll notice that they're very similar in sort of makeup. They all come apart pretty much the same. I think you'd probably find that SRAM's different. They've got different parts that can be removed and different ways that you've got to strip the part down, but on the whole, especially the Shimano, they are very similar, whether it's XTR or anything down to, you know, like this, like a Acera or Livio or something like that. So now starting to put it back together, you can see I've just put the cable holding screw on, and now I'm just putting the cable adjusting part back in. So I do actually take this bit back out after when I start putting the cage back on. I realised it was easier to put the cage on without that on there, but obviously you just saw me put that in place then. And now putting the spring back in the derailleur. This is again the part that holds onto the frame. So at this point I should have put the screw in first, the main bolt that holds it onto the frame. I start messing around putting these bits in, which is fine, you can do it this way, but it's easier just to put the bolt in and then start putting it around it. So at this point I then thought, yeah, I better put the bolt in. It makes it a lot easier trying to twist that. You won't get it twisted around very easily without that bolt in. And this is the easiest way I find of doing it, using the screwdriver just to lever it and then push it down over that little notch. And then you can push the bolt in fully, and then we can get the clip put back on. So like I say on all the derailleur videos that I do, that's the hardest part of the whole process really. Getting that part over, it just takes a little bit of effort to get it back over and twisting it at the same time. But once that's done, it's pretty straightforward now. Putting all the small adjuster screws at the back, this part of the derailleur just adjusts the maximum movement that the derailleur will do, whether it's at the highest or the lowest position. So these will need adjusting when you actually put it on the bike. So I just put it in there. And then once it's put on the bike, it'll be adjusted accordingly. And now greasing up the jockey wheels, and we can start putting all the parts back into that. And then we can get the jockey wheel fitted with the cage. So this is the point where I took that adjusting cable part off of the derailleur, just so it was easy to get in there and do that bolt up. So I don't fully do the bolt up tight, not until I get this jockey wheel in place. And then I can do them both up tight together. Just makes it easier so you can move the cage about rather than doing it up tight and then it's stiff. And putting that adjusting cable part back in. So now we're getting to the end of the derailleur build now. So I'm just going around with a bit of wet lube, going over all the joints, just putting it in there. And then what I'll do is get some grease and put that into the actual main spring. And then that'll be it, that'll be all done. So obviously it takes a little bit of time to do all this, but it's well worth it. Look at the difference now, look at how good it looks. And like I say, it will just work exactly how it should have done in the first place. So I hope that's helped someone who's looking at rebuilding an Acera-X or servicing, and show exactly how it's done. And that's it, all done. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video, it's really appreciated. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.